4 days. We've got a lot to do in 4 days. Today we'll spend the day here in the classroom going over this. You can follow through on this large book that they put together here for us, the format we use. You can follow through with that as we go along. I'll show you a few videos. If there's any questions anytime, just ask. I don't know how much experience you people have, whether you have a lot, just a little, or just how much, or if you just plowed snow, or what you've done. So maybe I'd kind of like to ask each one of you as we go before we get started how much experience you got, and then I got an idea, you know, what to work with on each of you. Because when you rate someone from 0 to 10, like I had a class where I had 3 down around 0 and 3 people around 10, well, I'm at a pretty disadvantage, and I got to spend equal amount of time with everybody. But I can figure the people with 0 experience, less experience, if I can do certain things to help them more than I can. The other people, I can use them to advance them further. Let's start here.
On a 1 to 10, I'd say probably about a 5. I think everybody here's plowed a lot of snow. I did all the dirt work, the asphalt crew for the last couple of years.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
So probably about 5, I'd say.
About 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Michelle?
Blade and snow.
Blade of snow, huh? Just watch another blade out record. Okay.
Blade of snow twice last winter.
Twice last winter.
I was dead.
Okay.
And I did try and show me a little bit of gravel road grading this summer. Through that over there.
Okay. One thing about the dirt, the blade will go further and further down.
Yes, it will.
The snow it won't. Your experience?
I guess probably about 5 years total.
5 years total? You worked in the gravel, some in the dirt,
Yeah.
some maintenance and so forth.
Yeah, worked up at Red Dog and worked in a lot of mining.
Oh, you did. Then you worked some haul roads, things up there, different things with the graders.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just worked snow for about 10 winters now.
10 winters. Okay. Well, there's no need to try to teach you anything about plowing snow. I know that right now because you know more about it than I do.
Lots of snow, some dirt.
Some dirt.
Lots of snow, and just like a couple hundred hours on dirt.
That's a couple hundred hours on dirt. Okay.
A lot of snow and
A little bit of dirt, huh? Okay. Well, there's about 3 things that I think is really important in running a motor grader. And number 1 is safety. Number 2 is be able to drive straight. Can you plow snow? You know. Because I found this all over every place I've been. Everybody drives crooked. I tell you, guys that work 10, 12 years for DOT drive crooked. You got to drive straight. There's good reasons for this. I'll get into it later. The other thing is don't over-control that machine, like the blade. Don't over-control it. Let it take care of itself. It'll do the work if you'll let it, but if you want to try to control it all the time with both controls, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because you'll just never get any place. You just got to kind of set the machine, get it set, just control one side or the other, and just drive it, and let it do the work. But I know you have a lot of streets where you got driveways, you got things that are up like this where you can't. You have to control the machine. But other than that, don't over-control the machine. I think that's some of the most important things that there are in running a motor grader. And speed, don't go too fast. Just slow down till you get used to it. Because I know you're all plowing snow, been plowing snow all winter, and I run this every place I've been so far. I've been to Fairbanks, Glen Allen, all over, and they all been plowing snow, and the first thing to do is put the blade down, pull the throttle back, and take off. It don't work that way at dirt. You got to take it a little slow, you get used to it, and then you can pick up more speed as you go. But you do a good job. It's tedious, and it'll get on your nerves quick. So through this class, we're going to cover safety, and then we're going to also cover the controls of a motor grader. We're going to control some configurations, components of a motor grader, and some, as far as pre and post inspections, as far as check your machine over shutdowns and things like that we'll go into today. We got terms and definitions, and then we have job layout we'll cover, and support grading, and then we'll get in a little ditching and a little sloping. I know most of the ditching you have is just minor ditches because you're inside of an urban area and you're not out on a highway someplace. And you don't have the high back slopes like we get into on the highway construction either. And what I want to find out for you as we go along here, I want to find out, mostly what you do, and that's what we want to work at, and train you to do what you do, not what we do in construction. Because in construction we do a lot different things than you do. Some of it's similar, but most of it is different. Because we move a lot of dirt fast and heavy, and there's a lot of different things, and we have a lot of the equipment we work with where you don't. So that's what I think is best for you to learn, is learn your work with municipality. You want to learn what they do and what will benefit them and you and your skills. And we'll cover some miscellaneous grading, and that's as far as I'll go here. The next class I have, we'll cover some finished grading. We'll get into a little road maintenance here also. I'll cover that. So forth. I have here a job description for grader operator. And this came out of a training manual from British Columbia, and I think it's the best that I've seen. It says the grader operator is the person who operates heavy equipment, machines called motor graders, which are used in road building, primary rough and finished grade, utility and grade maintenance work. The grader operator must be capable of performing duties such as maintaining haul roads, ditching and sloping, final grading, blending, spreading materials, snow plowing, scar firing, and blading in close proximity to other people and equipment. The operator must be physically capable of executing tasks in all types of weather, in restricted areas, close quarters, in potential hazardous situations on work sites, in noisy, dusty environment, on all types of terrain. The operator must have superior hand-eye coordination and exceptional depth perception for distance. Safety awareness and good judgment are essential. A mechanical aptitude is an asset in becoming a grader operator. Due to the elevation and steepness of some work site, it is recommended that the operator not have acrophobia, a fear of high places. A grader operator should be prepared to work long hours and shift work, possibly in camp settings. That doesn't sound like it's a very good occupation, does it? Well, it's not all like that. You're here in the city, you got it made. But that's a pretty good description of what you're up against. And another thing is, I go on these things that I think is important. Another thing is balancing your material out. When you shape one of these roads up, you pull that material together, you got a windrow that's uneven and ununiform. You got to learn how to balance it out so when you lay it out, it all comes out uniformly. So you don't have a big windrow you got to play with the side of the road, or someplace you got none. So if you learn how to balance the material, I think that's very important too. So we'll get into that. We'll start the safety here. It says, before attempting to operate any grader, the operator must read and understand all manuals and safety information for that specific equipment. I think that's very important. No matter what you get in, you should read the instructions. Because if you don't, you get out there, you don't even know how to start it. Responsibility. It is the responsibility of the owner of any grader to ensure that the only qualified individual be permitted to operate the equipment. Responsibility continued. It's the owner's responsibility for communicating information on the safe use and proper maintenance of all grader equipment. This includes providing understandable interpretation of instructions for operators who are not fluent with English. Decals typically reflect three types of operator information. These are caution, warning, and danger. And I'm sure you people deal with traffic every day. And probably they preach safety to you constantly, don't they? And safety is important. Modifications, nameplates, marking, and capacities. Modifications and additions which affect capacity or safe operation of a grader shall not be made without manufacturer's prior approval. That's like in some equipment, they shouldn't weld in certain areas because it weakens the frame and etc. Mostly they're referring to mechanics and so forth. When approved modifications have been made, appropriate tags and decals should be changed accordingly. All attachments will be marked to identify attachment, approximate weight of the grader, and attachment combination. Nameplates, warning decals, instruction markings should be in place and legible. About the only attachment you have probably is snow wings. Do you have snow plows in the front on some of these machines too?
Yeah.
Do you? Yeah. Do you have any of the pneumatic type, what should I say, a rubber tire roller that hooks to the back of the blade for maintaining, like say DOT has a lot of that? Those are pretty nice. You don't have one.
We can't even get cats out here. Although gave us his champions.
Yeah, Corby fight over.
Safety guards and warning devices, all graded and fitted with rollover protection structures in accordance with industry standards. The ropes, or ROPS, is intended to provide operator protection via rollover and falling objects. The ROPS system cannot protect against every possible situation. The ROPS system should be considered a substitute for good operational, should not be considered a substitute for good operator's judgment and care. I started in this business before we had ROPS. You want to be real thankful we have OSHA, and we do have ROPS. And I'm sure all this equipment you have does have, maybe some of it doesn't, but you want to be awful cautious, because I've seen some terrible things happen. I've seen a motor grader, like when you backslope, you put the blade way out the side and carry it on the side. Well, there's a lot of counterweight over there. See a fellow go around the hillside, and when he went around, he was pioneering a new construction project, and when he was going around the hillside, he had the blade on the high side to go over where they was working the cats to be able to cut the slope before they came further down. But when he turned around and come back the other way, he didn't put the blade back under it. The blade was hanging on the low side. And he happened to hit a hole with the grader. The grader rolled down the mountain 3 times. He cut him out of the cab. He tried to sue the contractor. His lawyer ended up getting half the compensation check. But that's before we had OSHA, before we had these ROPS. So they are important. And they should have them on all the machines. I know we're talking about graders, but you get involved with rollers too. And rollers are one of the most dangerous things, as you know. They're dangerous, aren't they, Michelle? They'll go right over the hill, right over the side. And there's a way to roll too, and I'll get into that a little bit in this too. There's a way to roll. Michelle knows, you know, when you work your way over your shoulder, not to get too far over, or you could go over the bank, and how to work your way over there gradually. She's good at it. She's good. She'll tell you how to do it. Okay.
The hard way.
It says safety guards and warning devices operate responsible for determining the working condition and availability of sound producing or visual devices. Graders should all be equipped with a horn, backup horn, and side mirror. I don't know if the side mirrors, yeah, they're nice to have because you can see if someone's coming up on you, but when you back up, it's best just look around. And don't get in too big a hurry. And you get in a habit like I do, and a lot of operators do. You throw it in gear, and you start moving, and then you look around. You get in the habit of doing it. I do it, I've done it, lots of time. But in an urban area where you're working, I wouldn't do it. You pay by the hour, so just stop looking down. Because right over here on International, no, it was on Tudor, it was on International and Arctic. They was rebuilding that in 80, and they had a Type 3 barricade, and had it blocked off, and had a flagman there, and some lady, a little car, pulled in through there. And I was working a little area about 100 feet long, just pushing some material ahead, backing up, and I threw it in reverse. And then I looked around, and I heard this beep. I looked, and I didn't see nothing. Because you can't see over the back of one of them graders for quite a ways back. The bigger the grader, the harder it is to see. So I looked out the door, looked up. Here's a little car, and this ripper sitting right up on that way lady's windshield. And was she really nervous? But I was too. So it's very important. Just take your time, look around. Another time out downtown, one time I was watching the guy plow snow, and this was years ago, and Stephens had a big 16 grader, and had a guy running, plowing down the street, and then he was backing up about a block. He threw it in reverse, and he started back, and here's this pickup. He threw it in reverse too, and he was trying to get back, and he was going in reverse as fast as that grader was going, chasing him. You probably all had that experience, haven't you? Because this public is terrible. They won't give you a chance.
Yeah, they need to get that law stated where they can where they can get in trouble for it, and they need to stay 50 feet
They can
back.
stay 50 feet back like the decals and
Yeah.
signs say, which should be on all your machines.
Because yeah, we've had several instances.
Yeah,
Well,
you have.
several, and
The city of Fairbanks has taken the rippers off because they say they go up on the hood and into the windshield, and they've taken the rippers off. They say that way it just hits the front of the car.
we only have
I
one.
don't know how much luck they have.
We only have one with rippers on the back. One?
Is it 37? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sold one of them, didn't he?
So that's very important. And they should have backup alarms. They should work. It's best not to take a machine out that don't work. But this traffic will give you trouble no matter what. Side mirrors, like I say, when someone come up on you, you can watch and see somebody coming. Operators should verify the need for any additional devices such as extra mirrors, blinking lights, etc. Operator is responsible for the use of all safety equipment. It's your responsibility. But also, while we're into this, I'll go, before I go, turning around. Like when you turn around out here with traffic, they don't like to wait on you. They don't want to give you a chance even. But if you see the distance between, you know, there's enough distance you can turn around, they can stop, go ahead. But I tell you what I found is best that keeps me from getting irritated is I don't look at them. I just turn around. You find that's the best? Oh, they tell you you're number one.
Flip that
I
mirror up.
just, in my,
It's weird
I
when
just
I
go
come
right
here.
out there, man.
Just go right out.
I
Just,
just
if
get
you
one.
see they got
Because
time
they
to
got
stop,
it.
and don't look
They
at
got-
them
they
because
got
then you
plenty
don't
of
see
time
their
to see
lips.
Right.
And then
Because
they-
if you don't look at them, you don't see the lips, they don't irritate you. So just ignore them and turn around and go.
That's what I do.
That's what you all have to do. It's something you have to deal with traffic, and these people will really, they'll make you irritated. But don't let it upset you. Don't let it upset you.
No, I found
It's hard
with
to
a
say.
lot of guys, they just sit there forever. And I have to tell them, man, you just can't sit there. You got to get.
You got to turn
You got to be
around.
aggressive. You got to. They
You gotta
see
turn
you. You
around.
got if you got enough distance, they see you.
Yeah.
You know, they'll just
Yeah.
get a little upset, but move on.
Right. But anyway,
I'd like it.
and I don't know how you turn around, how you fellas turn the machine around, but there's a way to turn it around. It's a lot shorter, and it's not by taking the front end and pulling it down around and then backing around. Pull up on the side of the road and back around this way and then go the other way, see? Like if you're turning that machine around out there in the street, you pull up on the side of the street like this, you lean these wheels over toward the ditch and back that machine around like this, and then you're headed in the direction you want to go. Okay? And if you want to go, if you're coming up this side of the road, and you want to back down that side of the road, why you go straight ahead on that side of the road, lean your wheels into the ditch, and then back your grader around, and you're headed right that direction. And if you want to go down the other side of the road, you pull over the other side of the road like this, back around like this, and turn around and go the other way. You try it. And it also tells you in the videos, I'll show you, to always back over a ditch, don't put the front wheels in the ditch because it could cause damage to the machine. Shutdown procedure. Before cleaning, adjusting, lubricating, servicing integrator, the operator should bring machine to a full parking stop on level surface, fully retract and lower the moldboard, attachments, place controls in neutral, and set the park brake idle. Set the park brake. Idle engine for gradual cooling. Turn the ignition key switch to off position and pull out the engine stop handle. Remove and take key for security reasons. Only when the engine is stopped and the key is off position is it safe to proceed with any work on the grader. Failure to follow specified shutdown procedures could lead to death or serious injury. The other thing is, when you shut this machine down and you get out of it, back out of it. And keep a hold of something all the time. You found that out plowing snow and everything's slick and nasty, you better hang on. But back out. Don't try to put your hand like this and walk out. And I've done that and fell over the moldboard. So don't do that. But hang on to something when you get out or get in. And you get up and check the fuel or check the oil or something. Hang on to something, make sure. Be safe. Because there's lots of people hurt. The other thing is, I don't know how the municipality, they have a policy about seat belts
Yes. Must be worn at all times.
in all vehicles.
Yes.
Graders and all, okay. Yeah. Not all contractors have that policy, but a lot of them do. And a lot of them is termination if you don't wear it. Kiewit, if you don't wear your seatbelt and they catch you, you're down the road. But I think it's a good policy. They're a large corporation. They've been in business for over 100 years, and they have proven in their tests that more people are injured by jumping off a machine and not wearing a seatbelt than wearing it and staying with it and getting rolled over. I seen a fellow on a roller working for them, and he rolled over the bank. He didn't have a seatbelt on, and he jumped out. He didn't get hurt, but they reprimanded him because he wouldn't have got hurt if he'd have kept the seatbelt on, but he'd been hanging in this roller, but he wouldn't have got hurt. But that's their policy. You wear it all the time. Pickups, graders, rollers, everything, you wear seatbelts. Scrapers, they all wear seatbelts. And I don't think it's a bad policy. You get the habit of doing it. And sometimes you put it in that grader and tighten yourself up. and it gives you a little support, because there's not much support in one of them. Maybe these Champions got good seats, do they? The new ones? The new ones got nice seats, haven't they? I seen one over in Taslena.
They're great for riding around town. You got to do any work with them.
Well, yeah, you know what? One guy at DOT told me. He said, I like it better than the Cat Raider. He said, it's got a bigger cab. I got more room when I stop and have lunch.
Yeah.
But somebody told me the area he works in, the roads aren't very good either. But they said they do have a nice cab. I tried to get most of the information we have is on Caterpillar, because that's where I've got the information, and we have that at the training center. I went over to CMI to try to get information on Champion, and they haven't got me any yet. So you people will probably keep me informed on Champion more than I know about them. But all graders do the same thing. User operator safety practices are established by applicable industry standards and should include an operator training when not part of the equipment safety manuals. Safety guidelines are not intended to preclude the use of good judgment, care, and common sense. I think that's one thing, is just don't get in too big a hurry all the time. Sometimes with a grader, plowing snow, you're moving off pretty fast too, but a lot of times if you're grading and working, sometimes you're better just take a little slow, use good judgment. If you take it slow a lot of times, just make one pass and do it right, you don't have to do it over. You get in too big a hurry, don't use good safety practice, good judgment, and common sense, and you get in a hurry and then you go bouncing like this. You've never done that probably. Then the car's coming along like this. If you do that, stop and back up and clean it up right away. Don't just leave it. Operators should be in good physical condition and mentally alert. Operators must know the capabilities, limitations, and work applications for the specific piece of equipment. Graders must be operated only at a speed that will ensure complete control at all times. In other words, what we would say, you cowboy a machine. You go down the road bouncing along like this, you know, and getting in a hurry, and jerking it around. It's better just to be smooth and easy and take it easy. Don't get in a big rush. I found over the years, when I first started running, I was really ambitious and young, and as I got older, I slowed down and I found I could do it a lot easier and a lot faster by just taking it slow. I suppose you found that out too sometimes.
Oh, you bet.
Just take it easy. Don't get in a big rush, because you're not working for some contractors out there saying, go, go, go. Always wear seat belts. Always keep hands, arms, and feet inside the operator station. Always be aware of pinch points. You got these pinch points in here when this grader articulates. You get in there looking around. If a mechanic comes looking around, and a good thing I think is good policy. It might be cold out there and it might be nasty, but you got something wrong with that machine, and you call a mechanic, and you bring him out. He comes out, and you sit in that cab. You're going to pour a cup of coffee, and he's going to look that machine over and find out what it is. You know, it ain't a bad idea for you to get out of the machine, because even though you got the emergency brake on, you got everything set, or maybe you haven't, or you forgot, and he's in there looking around someplace, you happen to turn around like this with a coat on and pour a cup of coffee, and your coat hooks a control, you don't know what's going to happen to that mechanic. So it's just a good idea to get out of the machine. You can use the rest in the fresh air anyway. Same way with trucks. You people probably drive trucks too. You know, if a guy comes look at a truck and crawl under it, get out of the truck. Lock it up and get out of the truck. Just get out of it. Then you can't touch nothing, nothing can happen, nothing can go wrong, and he won't get hurt. But if you're in the truck, you never know what'll happen. You don't know where he's at. Always wear seat. Okay. Pinch points. Always maintain a safe working distance from power lines and buried cables. Of course, you people realize that you have to get location, etc. You've got manholes and all these other things. Always check the site for terrain hazards. You people have more terrain hazards than anybody in the country. You've got water valves, manholes, gas lines, electric lines, TV cables. You got everything you dig up. And they're terrible. They're aggravating. And another thing, you get to work on a job someplace and you come in you stop for lunch and don't stop in front of a manhole, where a manhole's in front of you, and put your blade down, because I've done that. And then I get in the grader and I take off and I pick the blade up a little bit, take it off, forget about that manhole, wham. Good idea after, if you stop for lunch or something, walk around the machine, look it over, get back in it again and go. Good safety practice. You never know who's sleeping under it or behind it. Always be alert for immovable objects when blading. Never attempt to bypass the key switch. Never use hands to detect hydraulic fluid leaks. These new graders, especially these cat graders, they run about 4,000 pounds PSI, and if you get a little squirt hole in a pinhole in a hose, don't put your thumb over it. You put a hole right through your thumb. Never allow riders on equipment in operation. Additional safety reminders. Do not operate grader when weight and attachment exceed the approval limit. Do not allow minors or unqualified persons to operate or be in the vicinity of working equipment. Do not attempt to start the engine or operate controls while not seated in the operator's seat. Do not operate grader in an area not properly ventilated. You never get into that situation probably unless it's inside your shop here. But I have graded, like down at the Diamond Mall one time, they put the building up and then they wanted to pour the concrete slab. So then I get in there with a grader and grade it out, and it's all enclosed, and they got some fans and a few things working, but it don't take long in there before you see a blue haze, and you're up in that grader, you're up where the blue haze is. And so you can only work about 30 minutes and you better get out of there. Shouldn't even be in there at all. Do not leave the operator's station with the mold board and attachment raised. Should always lower the equipment. Additional safety reminders: do not attempt to fill fuel tank while engine is still hot. Do not drive grader close to an excavation or ditch. That's another thing. If you're working in an area and you got a high fill or something and it's wet and it's in the spring, feel your way out to the edge before you just take off out there, because you could just give away on you. You never know what you can run into. So at least when you come to something like that, feel it out before you go into it. Do not attempt to loosen or disconnect any hydraulic lines without first relieving hydraulic circuit pressure. Of course, you people don't fool with the mechanics end of this stuff, but if somebody comes around and do that, loosen the cap on the tank. Don't wear loose or baggy clothing while operating or service equipment. And that comes, like I say, when you're sitting in there swinging around with your coat grabbing things. And you want to keep your windows clean. Another thing is, when you're working around some places and you're shaping up some of these roads, getting ready to put wrap on or calcium or whatever you use, you're working with other equipment. And if you go to pass some other equipment, make sure you have eye contact with him before you do it. Have eye contact with other people around you, like truck drivers. Truck driver goes to pass you up. Make sure that truck driver should see that you got eye contact with him, because he could be coming like this, and you don't have eye contact, and you might want to turn, and all of a sudden you just turn right into it. You've got to have eye contact. Have eye contact with everybody if you can. Everybody surround you. Have eye contact before you move. Another thing, you get out here loading. You got trucks, and maybe you're just maintaining around the stockpile out here or something, and you got a loader working in a certain area. That loader has his workspace, his work area. That's his area. Stay the hell out of it unless you get eye contact with him. You get eye contact with him, then he knows you're there, then you go in and clean up. But otherwise, stay away. That's his area. That's where he's working. And he's got his workspace. And you get in there and something happens, you might say, he's at fault, he backed into me. No, you shouldn't have been in there, because that's his area. So have eye contact with everybody working around you. Rollers, everybody, compactors, water trucks, whatever. Get eye contact with people while you're working all the time. Another thing, if you're working with somebody on the ground, that's, of course you don't have grade checkers and things you work with, but you do have laborers on the ground and people working along in different areas at different times. But if all of a sudden he disappears and you don't see him, stop and look around, find out where he's at. I run over a guy's foot because I seen him. All of a sudden I don't see him, don't pay much attention. And where he was, he squatted down right over it, blocked my view from the front wheel, the front tire. I couldn't see him. And there he was. But it's soft dirt, and all it done is hurt his ankle. It didn't break anything, but just luck, he sees. So that's my fault. So maybe the guy went to the brush. You don't know where he went. Maybe he went to the bathroom. You don't know. But get eye contact with him. Find him. Locate him. Because he could be standing right behind the grader. You don't know where he's at. Nobody does. He just disappeared. But if you can all the time kind of have eye contact with everybody you're working with, well, you'll have less accidents. Like I mentioned, walk around the machine before you start it. Well, any questions on safety? Anything you can add to safety in these machines? Anything that you've seen that would help make things safer out there working?
Yeah, make sure they keep around all your foot pedals. We got a bad problem with the guys throwing chain links, J hooks, and all that stuff down in there on the floor.
That's a
Shouldn't have
good
nothing-
point.
Shouldn't have nothing down on the floor.
Pop cans rolling around, and you go to hit
Pop
the brake, and a pop can rolls under you, and you can't. Of course, you change. Different people run different machines,
Right.
so you should clean everything out of there.
But it's
true.
a good thing to just before you even take off to look down in that little area there.
Yeah.
Just
We
look
should always
down.
check you should always, check, make sure your brakes work before you start, before you move. Check the brakes. Check that type thing. Check everything. Check sure you're steering. See that all your hydraulic components and everything work. Move everything up and down. See that everything works before you leave the shop. You might just pick the blade up, drive down the road, you get ready to work, you go to circle and don't circle. You don't know. So check it out before you leave. It's a good point.
It's a real good thing too to check those front ends on them graders too. I've had one come apart on me driving down the road, and
I seen a
Traffic
guy
right
one
around
time
you.
run,
the tire just go.
the steering come loose on it, and you come around the corner and the steering come loose, and nothing they could do, and he couldn't get stopped, and he run right up on a car.
Yeah. Yeah, you just gotta check them out if you can. A lot of guys get too much of a hurry. We check
That's
it
what
out.
that's what we say. They get in a rush. Take it slower. Don't get in too big a hurry. You get in a rush, and somebody always gets hurt. Eventually, not right away. But that's true. I would, if you're running different machines all the time, or construction, you only stay with one machine. Why, clean it out, clean the garbage out, make sure everything works before you go. Good point. Okay, we go into control cab here. I got a video, I think, that'll cover some of this here. This will pretty much cover control cab, configurations and components, post inspection, it's a little like that. You'd rather watch a movie than listen to the interview.
Not necessarily.
Is it? This is put your arms on.
Let's take it.
I bet you there's much better.
Not too loud?
No.
For generations, Caterpillar motor graders have worked hard to build and maintain roads and remove snow. Motor grader operators have come to rely on them as their machines of choice. Over the years, our motor graders have delivered everything you demand from a
I'm
machine.
going to change this
Power,
here.
performance,
Wrong
and
one.
control.
I'm going to change, I got the wrong video.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, the 8-Series motor graders deliver everything you expect from Caterpillar. These new machines have more power, better performance, and more responsive controls. You'll see the difference as soon as you get in the cab and go to work.
Fair enough.
These motor graders build on the tradition of excellence the Cat G-Series motor graders established, but better and more refined, especially for operators. This videotape will show you how to get the most out of your new 8-Series motor grader. Whether you're an experienced hand like Don, or just getting started as a maintenance person, take a few minutes and watch. It'll make your job easier. You'll be able to take advantage of all the features we built into these machines. tape covers these subjects: safety, the walk-around inspection, startup procedures, machine controls.
Even though it's on
Demonstrate how to
Caterpillar,
get the most work done
this
by using
pertains
them
to all
most
other
efficiently.
manufacturers' machines
Shutdown
too.
procedures. Basic service and maintenance points. We'll key in on items that are different from the G-Series machines in this segment. We'll be using a 135H and a 163H for most of our training today. If you have another model, you may notice some differences in location of service points or even how your machine is equipped. Always refer to the operation and maintenance guide for your specific model. Safety. Before you operate any machine, remember safety must be your number one goal. Make sure you read and understand the instructions in the Operation and Maintenance Manual, or OMM, before you operate the machine. Safety precautions and warnings are provided in the OMM and at various locations on the machine. Be sure to identify and understand them before you start the machine. Every possible circumstance that might involve a potential hazard cannot be anticipated. Warnings in the OMM and on the machine are therefore not all-inclusive. If a tool, procedure, work method, or operating technique not specifically recommended by Caterpillar is used, you must be satisfied that it is safe for you and others. Start here at the left side of the circle. Remove any rocks. Check for damaged wear strips. Clean dirt out of the circle pinion teeth and apply grease only on the pinion area. Check for leaks or damage to the pump, cylinders, and lines. Check the blade and end bits for damage or wear. Check the external hydraulic system components for leaks or damage. Check the frame for damage or loose mounted components. Check the left front tire for cuts, damage, and proper inflation pressure. And make sure that the left and right front wheel spindle housing is not leaking. Replace any broken light bulbs or lenses. Check the steering and wheel beam cylinders and lines for leaks or damage. Also, look for leaks or pits or looseness on the tie rod ends. If you have a front-mounted attachment, check the mounts for looseness and the lines for leaks. Check for any impact damage. If you have an all-wheel drive machine, check the motors and lines for leaks or damage and remove any debris. Continue your check along the right side of the machine. Check the tandem housing for leaks and debris buildup. Check the right rear tires for proper inflation, damage, or cut. Check the engine pre-cleaner for dirt buildup. Then look in the right side of the engine compartment and make sure the engine air filter indicator is not in the red zone. If it is, change the primary air filter. Check the transmission oil level. Check the radiator for leaks and debris buildup. Also check the transmission and differential for leaks. Open the two valves on the air reservoirs to drain moisture and sediment from them. Come around to the left rear of the machine and check the tandems and tires. Then maintain 3 points of contact and go up to check the radiator coolant level. Make sure the cap is cold before you remove it. check the engine oil level. Use the side of the dipstick marked Engine Stop for this check. Check the hydraulic oil level sight gauge. Remove any debris in the articulation area. Make sure the cab glass is clean. Check the left side steps and grab irons, and you're ready to get into the cab. You can enter the cab from either side using the belted steps and handrail. Make sure to maintain 3 points of contact at all times. A knob located in the center of the door allows you to close the door from inside the cab, even if it's locked open. Controls, operation. The standard seat is a static cloth-covered model. For even greater comfort, the optional cloth-covered seat has 6 adjustments.
Got like a headrest on
Seat
it.
height, weight, fore and aft, seat cushion, seat back, and the lumbar. Always use your seat belts. In these machines, it's easy to reach because it stays at seat cushion height and retracts so it's comfortable to wear. Right in front of you are 2 very important adjustment controls. You adjust the 8-series motor grader steering column with this foot controller. You have infinite adjustment of the angle. You can also adjust the angle of the steering wheel for comfortable operation while you're sitting. Now let's get acquainted with some of the other controls in the cab. The suspended foot pedals are easy to reach and comfortable to use. The left pedal is the inching pedal. Use it for inching or creeping around objects, for forward, reverse changes, and when you start or stop the machine. You disengage the power to the wheels when you push down on the inching pedal. The middle pedal is the service brake. Use it to slow down or stop the machine. This is the accelerator pedal. Push down on it to increase engine RPMs above the hand throttle control setting. Then release it to bring the engine RPMs back down to the hand throttle control setting. Push down on the decelerator with your heel to lower engine RPM below what's been set by the hand throttle. When you lift your heel back up, the engine RPMs return to the hand throttle setting. This pedal is very useful when you have to slow the machine down briefly, when you're loading, for example. The hand throttle control sets engine RPM from low idle in the forward position to high idle in the rear position. The transmission shift control and parking brake is a single lever with a U-shaped shift pattern. Release the parking brake by depressing the shift control and pulling it out of the notch. On the 14H and 16H, you don't have to depress the control first. To apply the brake, push down on the control and move it forward into the notch. Use the transmission shift control to change transmission speeds and direction. The transmission shifts electronically, so every gear change is smooth and easy. These motor graders also feature electronic overspeed protection, which helps prevent engine and transmission damage from premature downshifting or grade-induced overspeeding.
That's something don't do. Contractor Fairbanks rented one to the military and they took it out at Wainwright. And the GIs would just let it run down the hill like this.
Instruments in front of you.
And overspeed,
Make it easy to keep
they
your
end up
eye
putting a
on
new
the
engine
work
in.
area and
So
monitor
you want to use brake and hold it back.
The stationary instrument panel contains the electronic monitoring system, or EMS, gauges and indicators. In the top panel, you'll see sensor and indicator, the EMS master action, hazard light indicator, center shift lock pin indicator, which lets you know when the pin is disengaged. This is the light for the optional supplemental steering system. If it flashes, the primary steering system has failed, and the secondary system is activated. When the light flashes, steer the machine to a safe location and stop it. On the 120H and 135H, the air inlet heater indicator tells you when the heater is on. Use it for cold weather starts. Here are the optional speedometer on the left and the tachometer on the right. This gauge cluster includes the engine coolant temperature gauge, articulation indicator, and the fuel gauge. On the 143H and 163H machines, the all-wheel drive oil temperature gauge completes the cluster. Down here, you see the two air pressure gauges for the service brakes. The EMS system provides 3 warning categories. Category 1 requires only operator awareness. For this category, only the indicator on the EMS panel will come on. Category 2 requires a change in machine operation to reduce excessive temperature in one or more systems. The indicator on the EMS panel and the EMS master action light will come on. Category 3 requires immediate machine shutdown to prevent injury to the operator or serious damage to the machine. The indicator on the EMS panel and the master action light will come up and the action alarm will sound. Let's move to the right and show you the controls on the ship's console. Here are the key start-stop switch and the diagnostic service tool connecting plug. These are the heater and air conditioner controls. Rocker switches on top of the console control up to 5 functions. Let's start with the switch closest to the seat. On this model, it's reserved for future use. The next one controls the optional delayed lift cumulators. It's a 2-position switch. On. This is the test switch for another option, the supplemental steering system. The system does a self-check at startup, so use the switch only for manual use or to move a dead machine. You have to do 2 things to activate the center shift pin puller. Push the latch tab and move the switch to the top position to disengage the lock pin. When the pin is disengaged, an indicator on the instrument panel will come up. Move the switch to the bottom position to engage the lock pin. The position of the center shift pin determines how far the drawbar extends from under the frame. Use the center shift pin for bank sloping or whenever you need maximum reach. Make sure you ground the mold board before you change the pin position. If you have a 143H or 163H, this 3-position switch allows you to put the all-wheel drive system in manual or automatic mode, or turn it off. All-wheel drive improves tractive performance in poor underfoot conditions such as snow, mud, or sand. Push the switch down to the all-wheel drive system in the automatic mode. The system then automatically increases pressure and therefore torque to the front wheels as rear wheel slip increases. You control the responsiveness of the front wheels by adjusting the torque control lever. The farther forward you move the lever, the more rapidly the front wheel torque will increase as tandem slip increases. The electronic controls of the all-wheel drive system then automatically vary the amount of torque in relation to how much the tandem slip up to the maximum system pressure. Push the rocker switch to control the all-wheel drive manually. Then adjust the torque lever to set a constant all-wheel drive pump pressure to the front wheels. Move the lever as working conditions change. Let's look at the other controls in the cab. This group of controls is for the windshield wipers and washers. Upper and lower front wipers and washers are standard. The rear wiper and washer are options.
Think they'll buy you an H
Just turn
model?
each knob
Would be nice.
Then all-wheel drive's nice.
Yeah. Especially
The city of Fairbanks has one.
Uses near the wiper wire.
They bought an
Oh, they
all-wheel,
got 'em. They
we
got
got an
one.
all-wheel drive Champ this year.
These rocker switches.
Champion coming with them too?
Yeah, we got one this year.
All-wheel drive.
When the four-wheel drive
I
works.
was gonna say, when it broke.
Rotating beacon light. Let's look at the switches on the steering console.
What?
This one serves two purposes.
Really had that
Push
much
the bottom
on
of
it.
it to test the EMS system. If your machine has an optional ether starting aid, push the top of this switch to inject a pre-measured amount of ether during cold weather starts. If your machine has a light bar, this switch controls the lights on. This one turns on the panel lights, tail lights, and optional headlights. This is the switch for the work light. The top position turns on the front work light. The bottom turns on the front and rear work lights. This is the differential lock-unlock switch. Push the top of it to unlock the differential. Push the bottom of it to lock up the differential. Lock up the differential when tractive conditions or application situations require. Always unlock the differential when you turn, articulate, or road the machine. If your machine has headlights, here's where the turn signals and hazard switch are. The headlight dimmer switch here on the right side of the console controls high beam down and low beam up. When ambient temperatures are above freezing, follow these steps. Engage the parking brake and put the blade lift control levers in hold. Turn the start switch key to start the engine. Keep the engine at low idle until pressures and temperatures come into operating range. If ambient temperatures are below freezing, you can use the optional ether start aid for easier starting. Go through the same steps, but push in and then release the ether starting aid switch while you crank the engine. Operate the switch every 2 seconds until the engine runs smooth. The 120H and 135H have another starting aid. Use the air inlet heater if air temperature is below 50 degrees. Turn the start switch key on. Push and release the air inlet heater switch. The alert indicator on the panel will come on and then go off. Then turn the key to start the engine. Implement control. The Caterpillar G-Series motor graders set industry standards for control locations and low lever efforts. The H-Series machines have the same control layout and lever efforts are even lower. Keep these rules in mind for the H-Series implement controls. Moving a control lever forward will lower or move the implement to the left. Pulling a lever back toward you will raise or move the implement to the right. All the implement controls are modulated. The small movement of the lever results in a slow, precise implement movement. The implement moves faster or farther as you increase lever travel. Lever throw is 3/4 of an inch each way. Lever efforts have been reduced to about 3 pounds for comfortable operation all day long. When the machine has reached operating temperature, raise the blade, release the parking brake, set the throttle control lever, and select the speed and direction. Let's try each of the levers and observe what they do. The two outside levers are blade lift control. The lowest rate with the left. Flipping it forward lowers the left end of the blade. Putting it back raises the left end of the blade. Blade float is a standard feature of the H-Series. Just move the blade lift lever completely forward into the detent position. Hydraulic oil now moves freely between the head end and the rod end of the blade lift cylinder. The blade moves up and down under its own weight. You can float one or both ends of the blade at the same time. An example of when to use blade float? When you're working shoulders and matching them to the road surface. Always ground the mold board before stopping the engine. If you leave the bladeless controls in place, the mold board could lower suddenly when the engine is started again. The blade side shift control lets you shift the mold board side to side on the surface, forward to the left, back to the right. Use it when working around objects like curves or to get the maximum reach with the mold board. Changing the angle of the circle allows you to change the mold board cutting angle. This is important for better material movement on the blade, for mixing materials, and to narrow or widen the cutting width. The blade angle is usually between 30 and 45 degrees to the frame. With the blade square to the frame, the blade is said to be at an angle of 0 degrees. In general, the circle will be at a flatter angle, 30 to 35 degrees for dry material, and at a steeper angle for wet, cohesive material. The blade side shift and circle controls are frequently used together. For example, moving both levers forward moves the circle counterclockwise, the toe to the left. The mold board side shifts to the left on the circle. This lets you position the blade quickly while turning around and getting ready for the next cutting pass. Move both levers to the rear to make the circle rotate clockwise and the blade move right on the circle. If your machine is equipped with a front scarifier or a rear ripper scarifier, move this lever to lower and raise it. Tipping the blade allows you to change the cutting edge approach angle to the ground. Move the lever forward and the top of the blade tips forward. Move it back and the top of the blade moves back. Normally, a grader will move material across the area being graded, not straight ahead. You can move more material if it rolls off the blade rather than being pulled out. Keep material rolling by changing tip position slightly as the material slows. For most work, place the top of the mold board about 2 inches ahead of the cutting edge. Depending on the material, you may have to make slight adjustments to this position. In finishing work, bank sloping, and snow plowing, the blade is normally tipped forward until the cutting edge is at about a 90-degree angle to the surface being graded. Use the blade tip control to change cutting depth uniformly across the blade when you do finish grading, bank sloping, or when cutting material at the end of a pass. For finish work, tipping the blade about 3 inches forward will allow circle rotation with little or no effect on the slope of your blade. Use the circle sensor to change the position of the block in relation to the frame when you need maximum reach or to work bank slope. Remember to ground the blade in the dirt before moving the pin out of the hole. To make the most accurate pass, move the center shift cylinder and pin positions before you start the cutting pass. If your machine has a snow, you have 2 levers that control this movement. The tilt lever moves the keel or trailing end of the snow. The lift lever moves the mast of the snow. Perhaps your machine has a snow plow or plow dozer. This lever raises and lowers. It also has a float and a hold position. Remember the rule. Pull the lever back to move the implement up. Push the lever forward to move the implement down. Wheel lean counteracts side draft caused by blade load. As the front end of the grader moves off the desired line of track, lean the top of the tires toward the heel of the blade, toward the direction of material movement. Push the lever forward for left wheel lean. Pull it back for right wheel lean. Wheel lean is also helpful when you need to keep the wheels vertical for ditching and for slope work. Wheel lean helps on these tasks too. It helps shorten the machine's turning radius. Use it to make select tooling corrections when you're finished blading, so your hands stay on the blade lift level. It can increase blade reach. It can vary the depth of cut on bank or backslip. Wheel being used together with articulation makes tighter, faster machine turnaround. Push both controls forward for a left turn. Pull them both back for a right turn. Motor graders don't articulate just to make their turning radius tighter. Articulation helps you do a multitude of tasks. Learn how to use the articulation lever along with other levers for all of these jobs. Counteract side draft caused by big blade loads. Keep the rear of the machine away from banks or shoulders and in firm underfoot to prevent rubbing. Keep drive wheels out of soft areas and wet ditches. Keep material flowing along the mold board. Give greater stability when working on slopes. Whenever you articulate your machine, make sure you keep the mold board out of the tires. Watch the ends of the mold board and the tires to prevent tire damage. With patience, practice, and steady hands, you'll be able to make good use of every refinement and feature we built into the 8-Series motor grader. Shutdown procedure. Move the machine off the road to a level place. Apply the service brakes to stop. Set the parking brake. Lower the implements to the ground and apply a slight downward pressure. Let the engine run at low idle for 5 minutes while you clean out the cab and do any necessary paperwork. This is an excellent time to do another walk-around inspection. Be sure to check the transmission oil as you make your walk-around and report anything unusual.